Once you get to 80% of your population that's vaccinated, well, it's very clear. I can't see any reason why Australians should be kept from each other.
But these guys see plenty of reasons.
At the moment, Queenslanders have more freedoms than what Victoria will have at 80% and what New South Wales will have at 80%.
We are free. We don't have lockdowns. Everyone's going to work and having a great life.
Need another? Well, a snapshot of national vaccination rates shows that WA and Queensland are roughly tied for the lowest single and double dose rates in the country. Drill down and they each have regional areas with rock bottom rates.
Saying you're going to have a very risk-averse approach to opening borders actually takes the pressure off people vaccinating, and it becomes a fait accompli. You're unlikely to reach those vaccination levels you need in order to be able to open safely.
The federal government insists there's no excuse.
We'd like to see every Australian being able to connect with every other Australian by Christmas. We'll have enough vaccines for every Australian to be vaccinated before the end of October.
But even in Victoria, where vaccination rates are about to hit 80% single dose, the Premier reminded everyone that open borders aren't a guarantee.
With the greatest respect to the PM, that's not his call. The national plan, which we are faithfully delivering, doesn't really go to these issues. No one's locked into having borders open.
We checked, and while the roadmap does say all interstate travel will return in Step 3, it also says that states and territories will move at different times based on local conditions. Overseas, some countries are really opening up. At 4 p.m. local time on Friday, Norway dropped all the remaining COVID restrictions, with only 67.7% of the country fully vaccinated. They've even started the process of reopening international borders. Rising vax rates mean Aussies should be able to soak up the summer sun, but will they have the freedom to do it where they choose?
Well, these states might be determined to keep their borders shut, but if it came down to it, could the premiers of WA and Queensland be forced to reopen? Well, thank God for people like Professor Kim Rubenstein, who's a constitutional law expert, so the rest of us don't have to be.
It tells us it's not a good thing. In fact, the whole reason that the whole Constitution was framed was motivated by a desire for freedom of travel amongst the country, because the colonies were really finding it dysfunctional to have different barriers around trade. And so Section 92 was placed there to discourage any restriction of travel within Australia.
Professor, I could wax lyrical about constitutional law till the cows come home. Some of my favourite books are behind you, to be honest. But could the states be open to legal challenge here?
Look, the answer is yes, they definitely can. Any person who is impacted by these restrictions and who can show that this is a disproportionate burden on trade, so that if it can show that it is in fact protecting one state over the other without a legitimate or proportional response, then it really is available for challenge, and we may in fact see that ahead of us.
Does the fact that all the states have publicly committed to this roadmap out, the four-stage plan, mean that actually if someone did want to take WA or Queensland to court, they might stand a better chance?
Yes, because these are the frameworks and issues that the court would need to take into account in actually determining factually whether these restrictions are needed for the purpose that they're seeking to achieve in terms of health protection. So the fact that there are other circumstances showing a different approach does in fact make it more vulnerable.
So if someone was to take, say, Queensland on ahead of Christmas holidays, how quickly could something like that go through the courts?
And by someone we mean Tommy, because he's really desperate to get out of Melbourne.
But Tommy, do you have standing? That's the issue. So you have to show your own particular interest, but maybe you do, Tommy. But in essence, these become urgent matters, and there are frameworks for courts to expedite issues that are a pressing concern.
Professor, what is standing? And Haim, do I have standing?
I don't think you have standing, Tommy. I definitely don't think you have standing.
Can you stand up, though?
What's standing?
So standing, very simply, is that the court will only hear from someone if they can show that they have a particular interest in the matter before the court. So you would think every citizen would have some sort of interest, but in essence you have to show something particular about that law and how you are directly affected. Now, you're right, there are a lot of people in the country who may indeed have standing or have a direct interest by virtue of the restrictions for travel around the country, which makes it a very significant issue for all of us as citizens. But that is a technical point that you would need to have.
I was just about to say that. I was just
Yes.
about to say
I
that. Yeah.
cannot wait for Tommy Little versus the Commonwealth.
And my standing is that I haven't been allowed to go to shooters for a long time.
Professor Kim Rubenstein, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much indeed, Hamish, and to all of you.
From expert opinions to in-depth analysis and reporting, the Project YouTube brings you the biggest stories from Australia and around the globe. Hit the subscribe button now for news delivered straight to your feed.